Okay, so moving on from our last video where we brought in our motion capture files and we characterized Andy and Lyndall's skeletons at frame 0. So we can see we are here now. So now we're ready to actually start bringing in our FBX models and setting those up, characterizing them, and then driving them with our motion capture skeletons. Now again, we'll do the import into the ROM takes and the lineup in the ROM takes because that's where we've done the T-poses. And then after that, all of that dynamic linking will be active across the different fight takes. So from yesterday, I showed you how to add a favorite path, the FBX models folder. So just recap on that quickly. So in the asset browser, right click, add favorite path, and then navigate to where you have that FBX models directory. It is on the K drive and it's in the Google Drive link that I gave you. It's been updated with the latest versions of the models. So if you have the old models, which are the kind of black costume ones, then you'll need to re-download this folder to get the 2 assassins and the options of the sabers or the swords. So if I click on the FBX models folder, you'll see in there now we have, I'll stick it to list mode so we can see what's in there. We have an assassin evil character, which has been zeroed out, an assassin good character, which has been zeroed out, 2 sabers, a green one and a red one, and 2 swords to represent the 6 marker and the 7 marker swords within the scene. Now, I don't mind for the unit which person you allocate to which, whether you make Andy the evil assassin, good, whatever, which color saber they have. Just make sure that you let me know in the report what your choices were, and then I'll see the results. The swords work just as well as the sabers, maybe a little more because the swords have the cross guards on, so you can see a little bit more rotation information from them than the saber. But again, it's about the alignment of the prop and how well that reads on the retarget that I'm going to be assessing you on in the unit. It's not about which ones you use. I'm not going to mark you down for the choices that you make. I'll be marking you on the accuracy and the quality of your retargeting in the Motionbuilder part. So to start, I'm going to make a choice here. I'm going to make Andy the good assassin and Lyndall the evil one, and then we'll choose weapons later on. So let's get into the stage of actually bringing in these characters and lining them up and then characterizing and retargeting. So let's just start. So we go to FBX models. Normally the templates folder is open like that, just so you can see it as it would be. FBX models, assassin good zeroed. Let me bring that in. FBX merge, no animation. And there we have our assassin character in a nice square T-pose as in the other video. And if I go to the display options up here and go to X-ray, you can see through. Now the display options in Motionbuilder, normal, which has the skeletons there, but they are hidden inside meshes. X-ray, which lets you see through to see the skeleton in meshes, and then models only, which just shows geometry and not bones and markers and any kind of nulls or anything like that. So let's turn it to X-ray so we can see here. Now, if I go down into my scene browser, I'm just going to move that up a second. There's a lot of entries in there now because the markers have come in individually. But if we scroll down, we'll now see the assassin options here. So there's all the geo, and then there's the skeleton here. And as you can see, I've added a reference node, a null, so we can resize. Already. You don't have to do this manually like we did before. And I've also squared out the T-pose, so there's no need to do that as well. It's ready to be characterized once we've resized it. We always do the size adjustments first, then make the retarget. I'll also show you how you can unlock the character definition, make adjustments, and then reinitialize it again to if you think you haven't aligned things properly. It's always going back. That's one of the asides I do here. If you don't think the characterization has been done right or something is done wrong, you can delete it. When you see the characterization and the character, that is just a mapping. So if you delete the characters here, you do not delete the rigs out of the motion builder scene. You're just deleting that setup. So if you don't think that it's working or you've made a mistake somehow, you can just go into there and delete those characterizations, go back and redo them, and then test from there. They're only like a logical setup. They're not physical, so they won't delete the rig if you delete those characters. Another mention here is I've made sure that I'm using namespaces here. So again, if we wanted to set a group up for the assassin, we could go by select by namespace, and now you'll see there's an assassin good namespace there just before the colon, and now it's listed in the namespace dialog as well. So we can set a group up to hide assassins if we so wish, and the characters and the props. I'll do that later maybe, but for now, let's continue and show you the characterization process for the character. So, characters come in, it's square, but you can see there's a big height difference. The assassin character is about 6'4" in size, and Lyndall's 5 foot something. I can't remember exactly how tall Lyndall was, but you can see that there is a height difference. So if I scrub the animation, you'll see there is no animation on our assassin character, so we don't have to keyframe our T-pose. We just have to, if we make any adjustments, we can do that on frame 0, and then we don't have to set keys because there is no existing animation on our assassin character. So all we need to do now is go in, align, and resize. So to do that, I'm going to come down here to select the reference node, which is here. I can move that. So let's just go to the front view actually, and let's get them lined up. So I'm just going to move that over until the hips are centralized with the mocap. There we go. That looks pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale, making sure I scale uniformly using this central gizmo here. Scales in all 3 axes. And again, left mouse button does big movements, right mouse button and drag does more fine movements. So I'm going to get it roughly about right, and then think here. So what I'm trying to do is line up the hips and line up the shoulders. If you look here, you'll see the arms are longer by a small amount. This is just the way that the model's made. So I'm trying to find that just about. So let me try and explain a bit more clearly. If I scale down so the hips are in, my shoulders are lower. So there's going to be more reach for the arms to do to get to the hands. If I scale up so the shoulders are lined, the arms are lined up perfectly, then the hips are slightly out. So it's always trying to find that best fit between the 2 characters, that compromise of between hips and shoulders. Now, personally, I kind of go halfway between. So you can see the hips are slightly above and the shoulders are slightly lower. But if you look here, we only have a very small difference. So there's the hand joint on the character. There's the hand joint on the mocap rig. So it's only a small spatial difference there, which means we won't have too much of a reach difference here. So all I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave that like that now. And then look how everything else aligns up. Now the feet are nice and parallel there. They might need a little bit more tweaking. So if I select the foot bone, go to rotate, always do it on the local axis when you're adjusting the bones of the character. Now I can tilt that foot forward slightly, and maybe that one to make them flat. Maybe rotate them over. Just a tiny tweak there. And then let's look up the rig. So there, the legs are nice and parallel, hips are in a decent position, spine's aligned. So what I'm looking for here is not absolute position, I'm looking for relative rotations. I'm looking for similar things, and a good way of exempling that now is what we need to do, is to look at these clavicles. You can see the clavicles on the mocap sweep up, but the clavicles on the assassin are flat. Now what that might give us is a bit of a droop in the shoulders, so I tend to like to make them parallel. So I'm going to go to the clavicles. Oops. These gizmos are a little bit, and then I'm going to make them parallel like this. Rotate that up so the clavicle's parallel, and then bring the arms back down. Now what I'm going to do here is bring the arms down so the wrists are level. There might be a little bit more bend in the elbow, but we want that hand position to be right. So just here, I'm just going to come down a tiny tad more till we have that nice line. That's okay. Let's check the other views. So if I go to the orthographic top view, okay, if I grab the reference node here, just going to move that back so the hips line. I can go to the left view to see that that's the case. Bring that in. You can see we're nice and straight. The spine's a bit different, but I think generally we have a good kind of shoulder position match there. We're kind of in between, but the arms line up on the top view as well. I could sweep the shoulders back on our assassin character, but to be honest with you, I'm kind of happy with that kind of fit. It looks good to me. Oh, one thing I have noticed is just the head here. So the head's looking down a little bit, and the mocap is up straight. So bring that head up straight. Let's check the hands. You can see we have our thumb reference on the mocap skeleton here. We didn't capture with full hands or solve with a full hand rig. That one looks fine. For some reason the fingers are swept back a little bit on this one. So I'm just going to grab these finger nodes using shift. And I'm going to bring them round so they're a little straighter. Because the hand looks straight, it's just those fingers look swept back a little bit, and that might affect the grip on the sword. That looks a little bit better now. So let's just check that in models only display to make sure we haven't over moved anything. Yeah, that looks nice and straight. Yeah. So I'm happy with that. So now we are ready to characterize. So to do that, we come into the asset browser again, templates, characters. Let's put that back to icon view to see more clearly. So now I can click, hold left mouse button, drag into the scene and drop it on any of the bones in the assassin rig. Characterize, biped. And again, because our naming convention is Motionbuilder, our human IK compatible, the characterization process goes through without any bone names not being recognized. So now I can go down to characters in Navigator and see that a new character is produced. Let's rename that. Assassin underscore good. So before I make that live, I'm just going to set up a group. I'm going to go edit, select by namespace, assassin good, select the branches, select all of that. Let me just double click off that to make sure I had nothing selected. Assassin good, okay. Go to groups, create, and type in there assassin good. And then let's save my file as a new version. I'm going to save it as setup 04. Characterizing FBX skeletons. And save that. So let's have a look and see how our assassin is moving. So to create the link between, there's a couple of ways we could do this. So if I double click down here, if you click on something singly, it doesn't change. To bring the options up in Navigator, you have to double click. Yeah. So I double click on assassin good. You can see here we have kind of things that mirror options. So there's lots of options down here that kind of delve deeper into the character definition and the settings, or we have our character controls up here. So there's two ways we can set up this link. So with this one, let's do it down here in our navigator setting. So I can say input type would be character, and then input source would be Andy mocap, and then click active. And if I scrub the slider now, you'll see the assassin is moving nicely with the mocap, and we've got a pretty good lineup there. The legs are a little wider because the hips are wider on the assassin, but as far as the relative rotation of the legs, that's looking pretty good. So I'm happy with that for now. There doesn't seem to be any errors. We'll come to fine-tuning and tweaking in another video. But for now, let's carry on and do Lyndall's ROM take and get her the evil assassin in and lined up and characterized. So I'm going to switch to Lyndall ROM take. And you'll see the skeleton moved with the actor, but there's no animation for these in here. So now I've got to go to my groups, hide Andy mocap and assassin good, unhide Lyndall mocap. So now we can see Lyndall skeleton. This is why it's really useful to set up the groups for everything with namespaces, so you can hide them if need be. So now when I bring in the assassin character for Lyndall, the others are out of the way and they're not causing any problems. So frame 0, always make sure you're on frame 0 for this. Let's go back to our asset browser, FBX models, and let's bring in our assassin evil character. So drag and drop into the scene, merge, no animation. And now we can see I've altered the textures on the assassin to make it clearer to read. So let's go through the same process again. Our scene graph now is getting quite busy with names in here. But if I scroll down, I can see assassin evil reference there. And now I'm going to do the same thing again, go to the orthographic views and do some lineup with the character. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of line it up across there. Let's do a scale on that. Bring the hips down. Let's try and get a view of both. So you can see if I bring the hips in here to Lyndall, the shoulders come in a little lower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and find somewhere that's just about, again I'll use the right mouse button. So I've gone kind of halfway between. The hips are a little higher and the shoulders are a little lower. But that to me looks like the best overall fit. The position here is not massively important because if I characterize it, when I link them together, it will snap them to position wise on the hips. But this is just for lineup purposes. So let's just check that. That looks about right to me. And now the same thing here. I'm just going to rotate up those clavicles to get them parallel, the same angle, and then bring those arms back down, making sure the wrist is there. Now you'll see here with Lyndall, even though Leonardo da Vinci drew an amazing drawing so many years ago, Vitruvian Man, to say that we all vary very slightly in our arm lengths. And you can see here, Lyndall has slightly shorter arms proportionally than Andy does. So there's a little bit more of a gap here in the retarget. Now that's just something we're going to have to live with in the retargeting stage, but no amount of rotating is going to get that to fit. We could scale down the assassin so it's smaller than Lyndall, but there's just not much point in doing that just to get the hands fit. We want to try and find this best fit overall. So let's go with that for now, and I can show you later on how we can unlock a definition and adjust that again if we so wish. So I'm happy with that lineup in the front view. Let's go to top view now. Just going to select the reference again and move that backwards so we can see how the hips align in the arms. and go to producer perspective. Let's look at that. Maybe bring those hips just a bit further back. Yeah, that's okay. The arms aren't perfectly lined up, but they are a similar angle. There doesn't seem too much of an offset. Let's just check that again from the top view. Maybe a tiny bit on that arm to come back. Just that much. And the same again on the other one to get them parallel. Okay, again, something weird's going on with the hand swept back. It's not the hand, it's actually the fingers. So let's have a look. Maybe there's a little bit of some adjustment we can do on the hand. Keep doing that. I can bring that back, and then maybe I can grab these fingers. Bring those a little straighter. If we were doing sort of finger-to-finger retargeting, this would be really important stage. But again, I just want this for reference, so the fingers will look correct when they're going towards the sword. If we don't fix this, they might look a little bit odd. Right, I'm struggling to select this here. Let me just go in and do that again. Hold shift down. Let's just try and straighten up those fingers a little more. That'll do for now. Go to perspective. Let's check that head. Still looking down a bit, so let's rotate that head up. And let's go from there. That looks good. So I'm happy that that lineup is correct, and now we can see how that looks when we drive it with the mocap character. So this time, let's set up the retargeting in the character controls. So, let's characterize it first. That helps, otherwise we won't be able to do anything. So now that I'm happy with that lineup, we're ready to drag and drop our character in. Characterize biped. Looking good. And now we can go up here, select, we haven't renamed it. Sorry, I was a bit distracted. My phone was going off in the background if you could hear it. So let's rename that to Assassin Evil. Underscore it. And now we can go up to here, Assassin Evil, and say the source is Lindell Mocap. It's a very slight move as it does that alignment into it. But now if we scrub, we can see pretty good alignment without any adjustment. So we now have both of our actors driving the mocap. Let's just save this file. Now we can switch to one of our fight scenes. Let's unhide Andy Mocap and the good assassin. Oh, there we go. That's one thing I haven't done. So let me do that quickly now. I'm just going to go to Edit, select by namespace, Assassin Evil. Okay. Create the group. We have that if we need it, and then save. So let's unhide our swords as well and see how well our characters are matching. So now our characters' hands have come to their swords, and now it's looking pretty good. We have a decent matchup. Let's go to the normal view. So one of the reasons why we bring our mocap markers in is to see how they position and how they're aligned on our FBX character. Now at the moment they're pretty good, But in a subsequent video, I'm going to show you how we can tweak these retargeting controls and bring that in more tightly. You can see that I'm looking initially now, and the head markers aren't perfect here. And if I go to X-ray view, we can see that, okay, the bones are aligned, all right, but the markers aren't. So what we'll do in a later video is use some controls to tighten up that retarget across the whole skeleton. And we'll do that as we go in. But I think for now, we'll leave this video here, keep it short and sweet so you can see the results of that. So just to recap, what we did is in each of the ROM takes, I brought in, dragged and dropped in our FBX models from our navigator. We did a little bit of adjustment to match the poses, rescaling, and a little bit of alignment. And then we made the link between the different actors active. Oh, I know what I didn't do. What I shall do now is show you how we can make any adjustments if we so wish. And again, adjustments are always made in the ROM take, not in the fight take. So let me just go back and show you if I wanted to adjust, say, what could we look at? Let's look at Andy's head, because I noticed that maybe. So let's go back to the ROM take for Andy. Let's hide everything else that we're not using. There we go. So how do you adjust the characterization once you've made it? It's very simple. What we can do, you can't rotate or adjust anything now because it's locked. It's being driven in real time. So if I try and move that arm, nothing happens, yeah? And if we move, nothing's changed. Because the definition, this offset measurement has been locked. So if we go to Assassin Good, you see it's linked to Andy mocap here. Here are some of our character controls, which I'll come back to in a later video. But if we look, there's a tab here called Definition. And that definition is mirrored in our character definition down here, yeah? Just so you know where the two things can be found. So if I wanted to adjust anything here, I need to unlock the definition. And then I could go in here and make any adjustments. So let's just try, for argument's sake, let's just bring that neck bone back a little bit, and then tweak that head position there. Okay, and then once we've made the adjustment, we go and lock the definition again, and it'll pop up with this window, biped. What you'll notice is the link is not working anymore, yeah? So we need to go back and redefine that source, Andy mocap, and now if we look, let's go to the normal view, then the markers are fitting a little bit better around the head. And again, if you really want to look and see that, what we can do is go to the fight sequence folder and use the reference photographs, and we could have a look at Andy with his markers. Can I zoom in? I could zoom in here and have a look where the markers are. They're high up on the forehead, and that's kind of where they are on the assassin. They look pretty good. And again, now if I play the ROM take, we can see, especially in that head roll movement, that's moving really nicely. And we've just adjusted our definition. You could do that the same with the mocap skeleton. If you think you made a mistake with that, you could go back to the mocap skeleton. We can go to X-ray view. I could actually go back to Andy mocap, unlock that definition, make an adjustment, lock it again, biped. I go back to Assassin Good. It's still got the link there, and we could make adjustments. So just remember, unlock the definition, make any adjustments, and then look at your results and see. This is before we start using any of these character controls or any of the other options to now using the parameters of the human IK process to sort of tweak that retargeting. So the thing we're going to do in the next video is bring the props in and get them driven by the bones with the mocap. So I'll leave that video here, and we'll pick up in the next one of bringing our prop models in and driving them with mocap.